Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are totally breaking down the psychological roots of procrastination. We're going to give you the actual science-backed tools to finally stop overthinking. I mean, if you've ever felt completely trapped in your own head, unable to move forward on a project, a big decision, or honestly, even just a basic daily task, well, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to unpack exactly what's happening in your brain, and more importantly, how to fix it. Okay, so let's dive right into a highly relatable moment here. We have all been there, right? You're just standing there, staring blankly at your clothes, wondering, is it going to be too hot for a jacket? Is the office going to be freezing? Or, hey, maybe for you, it's trying to choose a restaurant for a team dinner, and you're obsessively weighing everyone's dietary restrictions, their preferences, the impression you want to make, and suddenly, this super basic choice just feels entirely impossible. You get so overwhelmed that you kind of just want to throw your hands up and give up entirely. So this whole phenomenon, it's known as analysis paralysis. And contrary to popular belief, the root cause here isn't laziness at all. According to research from Asana, it's actually driven by anxiety, and honestly, sometimes even imposter syndrome. You see, our brains desperately want to make the right choice every single time. But when you're faced with a situation where there's literally no single correct answer, that intense pressure to be flawless can quite literally paralyze your ability to decide. Which brings us to section 1, the trap of overthinking, and exactly why we hesitate. We really need to clear the air right off the bat here. Let's completely contrast that common myth, the idea that you just need better time management, with what science actually tells us. The reality is that hesitation and procrastination are emotional regulation issues. It's not about you being a slacker. It's actually your brain frantically attempting to escape the negative emotions, the fear, the doubt, the anxiety that are tied to the task at hand. All right, moving into section 2, the paradox of choice. Why having more options isn't always a good thing. To fully grasp this, let's look at a landmark year 2000 study by psychologists Sheena Iyengar and Mark Lepper. This perfectly proves what psychologist Barry Schwartz calls the paradox of choice. So picture this. Researchers set up a tasting table of jams for shoppers. On one day, they offered a massive 24 options. On another day, just 6. Now, conventional wisdom says more options mean happier customers, right? Well, actually, wrong. The shoppers faced with 24 jams were completely overwhelmed. And here's the absolute kicker. People were roughly 10 times more likely to actually make a purchase when their choices were limited to just 6 jams. Think about that for a second. 10 times more likely to act. It turns out, endlessly analyzing an excess of options severely drains our mental energy. The more options we have to weigh, the more likely we are to just say, forget it, walk away, and avoid deciding altogether. Okay, so let's shift to section 3, perfectionism and the gap, and why demanding a flawless choice backfires. It's fascinating to see how our brains overcomplicate simple things. There is this incredibly dense model pulled directly from a rigorous daily diary study by Crux Psychology's Martin Smith and his colleagues. It maps out the exact relationship between perfectionism and procrastination over a 7-day, 14-occasion period. Now, I know the academic modeling is visually overwhelming. It looks a bit like a giant puzzle, but it tells a really compelling story about what actually happens inside the mind of a perfectionist. Basically, all that complex academic modeling boils down to this clear 3-step sequence. First up, you have perfectionistic concerns. This is that nagging tendency to perceive social pressure to be perfect and to absolutely fear making mistakes. This directly triggers step 2, discrepancies, or what we can just call the gap. This is a genuinely painful, subjective sense of falling short of your own ideal standards. And because experiencing this gap is so distressing and paralytic, your brain desperately moves to step 3, procrastination. You delay the task simply as a temporary way to escape that awful feeling of falling short. Let's look at section 4, the cost to your brain, and the very real physical toll of this persistent hesitation. It turns out, overthinking is quite literally exhausting your mind. Your working memory, it's finite. When you use it all up obsessing over making the wrong choice, you actually lower your performance on the task itself. But it gets even crazier than that. MRI research by Grace Hawthorne and Alan Reese reveals that overthinking a simple drawing task physically shifts brain activity away from your prefrontal cortex, that's the part of your brain responsible for high-level thinking, and moves it to the cerebellum. Manish Sagar, the lead author of that study, basically concluded that the more you think about it, the more you mess it up. Fortunately, we can stop this. Which brings us to section 5, the 5-second rule, and how to break the cycle. the story behind this rule is incredible. During a massive low point in her life, we're talking struggling with career problems and severe panic attacks, author Mel Robbins was finding it nearly impossible to even get out of bed in the morning. One night, she happened to see a television commercial featuring a rocket launch, and it just clicked. She realized she needed a literal countdown to propel herself into action, before her anxious, perfectionist brain could step in and kill her positive impulses. So the next morning, she tried it, and it completely changed her life. So here's exactly how it works. When you notice that fleeting impulse to act on something you know you should do, you immediately count backward. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The very second you hit 1, you physically move, you just act. By counting backwards, you actually require focus, which acts as a circuit breaker for your habitual patterns of self-doubt. It gives you this tiny 5-second window to release what's called activation energy, basically tricking your brain and forcing your prefrontal cortex right back into the driver's seat to take control. And this rule isn't just for massive, life-altering overhauls either. It's really about practicing everyday courage. Think of Rosa Parks. On December 1st, 1955, she acted on a completely spontaneous impulse to resist injustice. She didn't pause to overthink the risks, because, honestly, if she had, her resolve might have wavered. Everyday courage is built by acting on those positive impulses in the moment, just 5 seconds at a time. Let's wrap things up with Section 6, moving from paralysis to action, with some strategies for your daily work. To combat both the paradox of choice and the trap of perfectionism in the workplace, Asana recommends a few highly effective strategies. First off, set yourself a strict, immovable deadline to make a decision so you just can't waffle forever. Second, narrow down your options early. Just immediately eliminate choices that don't fit your core goals. And third, practice rapid impulsivity on small stuff, like quickly picking what path to take to work or where to grab lunch. Making fast decisions on inconsequential things actually trains your brain to be decisive when it truly matters. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a bit of a challenge. You know the science now. You know that overthinking literally drains your brain's resources and that perfectionism is often just a clever disguise for avoidance. So what is one decision or one action you've been putting off? I challenge you to count down from 5 right now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and take one immediate, courageous step toward getting it done. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.